I appreciate everyone making time for me today. This is a really big topic, I think, for everyone in the community, and they're curious about how things are shaping up and where we're at. So we are almost exactly a year on from the flood now, from the Canada Day flood, which I've just reviewed kind of a lot of the footage we took at that point, an interview with our mayor here about what things are going on. So I wanted to find out, first of all, the status of what we're at right now, how things are, and also what the plans are now for the future. So just really starting, what immediate work was done, and anyone can answer this who understands or aware of it, what immediate work was done after the flood that went up, to regain access to stuff, and how long was it intended to last?
Well, Deneen, you could probably take that one. You were
Yeah.
the guy that was gung ho on that bird.
Yeah.
Most of that, I guess the biggest thing we've been doing is probably just cleanup. So there's still been tons of site restoration happening. Whether it be cleaning all the silt out of the park, which still is not even completed. The next hurdle would be removing any contaminated. Again, that's part of the cleanup process. So all our playgrounds, Hillcrest was just 1 year later, actually opened up again. That was completed. Dike work continued on throughout the flood, and it was all tidied up and dressed in some of the final stages of culverts that were tied to our drainage study, so that kind of was a little slow at the beginning to get those completed, but once we had the information, we had that done. Ongoing work that we're still combating is from flood to drought. So now it's the difficulty in trying to reestablish growth in all these areas. So we can seed all we want, but the area to water is just too great. So unfortunately, I think we'll still have to selectively water and then look at some fall sowing and trying to get, hopefully there's a bit of moisture in the fall to help take some root germination.
Mother Nature might have helped you a little bit today.
Yeah. I think most will be wrapping for the ground.
What did you build those berms to? You had a plan when you built them, what they were good for in terms of flood.
Yeah, we were targeting, initially I think we targeted 4 feet above high water mark. By the time of completion, I think we were a couple feet above them. So accounting for some settlement, they should have hit the high water mark right now. So we need to see the exact disaster replay itself. But now there's room again to build on top of those in worst case scenario, because we can drive a vehicle on top of those right now.
I was going to say, they're built to last, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not temporary, they're permanent.
They're permanent, yeah, they're solid plans, so we're okay that way.
Okay, so yeah, that was one of my next questions, is was there anything that we did that was temporary at the time that has sort of become a permanent fix?
The dikes are always intended to be a permanent fix because the effort you have to put into them to build them, there's not much sense in slapping them together and then walking in and digging them up. The only temporary structures we really had would just be some of our water crossings, so access to Park Lake. Again, took a little longer to establish that just due to the wait time for material, and then priority work. Once that was completed, we have temporary access in play, and then I think I'll let Colleen explain the further Park Lake's picture.
Insofar as, what are you thinking?
The outlay of the restoration of the lake.
Okay, so maybe I'll start with, in total, there was 25 sites requiring remediation and restoration from the flood of last year. I would suggest at least half of those came from the golf course side. The major project of the golf course would be on Hole 8, where they lost their pedestrian bridge and they also lost a lot of the bank out there. Those two projects, clearly we had to deviate from the permanent solution in the long term so that they were open for the summer. We were able to achieve a temporary bridge solution there for now, so come fall when the golf course is ready to close, the activity will begin to finish the remediation Hole 8 out there. Insofar as ours, we put in a culvert system in Park Lake, so that would provide us temporary access to the cross to the Rotary Park side and the bird sanctuary over there. There will be a new bridge built out there in conjunction at the moment with the culvert system, but eventually the culverts will be removed because we recognize that as the restoration proceeds, we're going to need truck traffic access and all kinds of things out there. We've been working with Stantec since probably late last fall, and they did a geotechnical report and gathered a lot of information for us to create a report for us on where we're going to go with how we proceed with restoring Park Lake. It will be restored to the level it was before, but even better because it's been there since the late 1800s clearly, and there is no historical data anywhere in the province to suggest it was a registered infrastructure for retaining water there. And we're going to proceed through the winter. I think we recognize that the road that goes out around Park Lake is not designed for large truck traffic or equipment either. So if we utilize access through the winter, and perhaps down by the water plant, we can bring all that equipment in and maybe haul our materials in through winter, so that by next fall, we hope to have the bridge restored, Park Lake put back. Maybe not all the beautification touches, but we're hoping, that's our goal anyway, is probably November of 2022 to have everything back in place.
So we are putting the lake back, we're putting water back in the hole.
Yes.
Okay, how did we come to that decision? What other options looked at, or was it always, we always wanted to put the lake back?
That was always our first option. In fact, I don't really think we had a second option, did we?
Well, I'll maybe speak to that. Under the DFA claims, what happens is you have the ability to restore to a pre-disaster state. That is our pre-disaster state. So when you look at what the other options are, really I think council said, no, there really isn't another option, let's put it back. Because I think it's a bigger discussion, and we have had political commentary sent up to the government on this. When you look at the water coming out of the watershed up from Rosedale, and actually start probably up in Harrison Town Way and comes all this way, that was a pretty key control point for tempering water before it went down into the White River there. By not putting that back in, we're taking that out of the equation. So if events like this happen in the future, there could be damage elsewhere along the line that we are allowing them to happen because we did not put back in that storage body there. So I think there really wasn't any other decision, and we want it back, I think, is the bottom line.
So has there been any research or anything done into what the loss of Park Lake over the past year, and I guess into the next year until we're able to fill it again, has done to the watershed, to the ecosystem?
It's pretty hard to judge.
Yeah. That's why I said there was research, because I'm not sure if anyone
There
has
is no
seen that.
ecosystem anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically, there's.
Yeah, I don't know what we can tell you other than we do know people still go over to the bird sanctuary, people still picnic over there, there's still activity going on. A lot of comments about sure be nice to have the lake back. Clearly it's just a big old dead wasteland looking out there. But there's a promise for the future, it will come back, and maybe that ramps up more tourism traffic over there, or just general use for people wanting to use Rotary Park. Like, I don't know.
So right now, are there still safety concerns with people going on that lake bed? Because they are.
Yeah, no, I think you're right, they are.
Yeah.
We're not gonna fence them off, so it's,
Okay.
you use it at your own risk, same as when the water was there. You want to
Okay.
walk into the water, that was your choice.
Okay, but we aren't, there's not a huge concern with sinkholes and things like that in there at this point.
No.
Not this year.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Cement down there now.
Yeah.
Maybe Denise, you could talk about the new system that's gonna go in there for the water out of that lake, though, it's gonna be
Yes. Essentially looked at the existing weir structure we have right now and the dikes, and nothing meets the standards set today. So it's a full restoration of everything on site. So all the berm structure has to be removed and replaced and built to today's standards. The weir structure is an insufficient weir width, so they're going to go from 30 meters to 130 meters. I don't think they still have 100% figured out about the pedestrian bridge below the water, if it's going to be affected throughout the design process. They seem to think the last bit that they can manage it, but we'll see about that.
So we are planning to replace like the bridges that are not in use anymore and those things as well.
So the pedestrian bridge right now, they feel it's still okay.
Okay,
Structurally, it's okay. Whether or not it can accommodate the expanded weir width is what they're just
Okay.
not sure about.
all right, so of course Park Lake was not the only thing that was hit by the flood going through. There was a lot of damage to private property as well. To your best of your knowledge, has that been remedied at this point? Are there still ongoing concerns?
I think, yeah, there's still some issues going on out there. Yeah, I mean, well, maybe Colleen can speak.
I know there are people here personally affected by it as well who might
Yeah.
be well aware
Ask
of it.
Mr. Pablo, he was right in the front line there.
You were up there.
Yeah, it's ongoing.
Yeah, okay.
It's gonna take a little bit of time.
Yeah.
So just for clarity though, private property owners had to file their own claims.
Yes.
As much as we did track, there's some paperwork at the onset for them, they have to deal with their own issues. We more recently sent in information to the government trying to understand, because Everybody's been starting to receive a letter saying they want to close the DFA program, and that's just a standard process. They open a program, they allow you to apply, then there's a period of time where they need to close it, because they can't carry on these things into perpetuity. So the deadline is September 10th to apply, and everybody's gotten their letter. So in advance of that, we sent in correspondence saying, well, there's clearly no way we're going to put in bridges in a Park Lake by September 10th of this year. So there's an ability to request for an extension on that, and we submitted information and we received that extension. There's also a concern we had raised that the level of money is going to require to do all of our remediation. We just don't have that kind of money sitting here in the bank just for use for a purpose we didn't expect. So we were actually asked for the ability to have a cash advance, and we were notified last week that we were successful in doing that. So they've advanced us some money against our claim, which we will use now to pay off our bills as they come in. Insofar as private property owners, we heard that some of them might be getting refused on their claims. It all links basically to the insurance component. And as much as people don't like to hear it, the first thing to look at it, was your property insurable? And if it was, they don't give your claim probably as much attention. So what we did is we wrote in and said, as much as maybe the first rains that came up to before the morning of July 1st maybe were part more related to insurance from the rain that fell directly and internally in Neepawa, once 7:15 or 7 o'clock hit on July 1st morning, that was water that nobody prevented when Park Lake let loose. So our document that we sent into the government basically said, if they would consider or reconsider all of those claims of people that where it could never have been insurable for the let loose of Park Lake would be reviewed again. So I guess we just encourage private property owners to appeal or call in to the DFA office and ask that their claim be reviewed again. And if we have to assist them with pictures or more documentation to show that it wasn't just about the rain that came from overhead, it was about the rain that came down through the watershed and broke Park Lake loose. So there is a difference, very clear.
Absolutely. Okay, so on that topic, really, ballpark figure, what does it cost us so far for these repairs? And what is the total we're looking at when they're done?
So far, we submitted a claim probably to December of last year. We submitted a claim for $800,000 that we're waiting on. And I'm not sure what we spent up to this point. We haven't submitted a second claim. I guess the number you're really looking for is when we're all said and done, it's going to be anywhere between 10 and 12 million.
Okay. And how much of that is being covered by federal, provincial?
All of it.
All of it?
Yeah, that's a good news story there.
That's actually a surprise. I didn't think there was that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So that is restoration to the point it was before.
Before.
Which in a lot of our cases is going to be better, especially
Right.
Park Lake. Yeah.
Because we have to, of course, build it to standard and
Yes.
and whatnot. So is there any vision, once we get to that point, for that site, any other further construction on site, any further ideas about what we're doing with that site? Once we have a lake again.
Well, we talked about that a lot, but at the end of the day, it's not really a fresh water. I mean, the water is fairly stagnant there, right?
Yeah.
The water doesn't flow through there all the time, right? So I know a lot of people were viewing that maybe this would be an opportunity to do something recreationally, but it's just not practical. So I don't think, we're talking about putting some islands in, weren't they? Dean, is that something?
Yeah, we might even have islands that start floating on themselves, but essentially you have to remember this, it's a wetland,
Yeah.
and that's what it's gonna be.
It's not a swimming hole, it's not anything
No.
like that, so.
Yeah, Stantec had identified that there was not enough water exchange inside Stony Creek to make that a functioning recreational. I guess when you say lake for recreation, it can be two things. Recreation can be walking around it, looking at it, appreciating nature. That's recreation. Recreation does not have to be defined by a motorboat on it, swimming, that, I mean, what one person's form of recreation is another, right? So, and it restores wetland and habitat into the area.
I guess our big recreation there has always been the walking trails around it, and that is something that is covered under the plan for right now, is to sort of restore the walking trail.
Trying to get the habitat back there, because a lot of people go out and look for insects and birds and you name it. The turtles that used to be there and the pelicans that always come and,
I still look for turtles at the turtle crossings. I've seen the days. I know, it's certainly surprised to see it drained and
Spring in there.
it's quite shallow. Like I didn't realize quite how shallow it was until you saw no water in there. I realized it's just kind of a little dip there. Thanks, that really kind of covers where I want to go with it, so it's nice to know that there is a firm plan in place now for us to, and timelines in place for us to restore Parkley to what it was before. Any last thoughts from anybody?
I think it's just exciting that, I think a lot of us were concerned about where that money was going to come from and how much was going to be available and what our timelines were going to be, and it's all just worked out really, really well.
I think if you look at a year ago, all of us were pretty devastated by it. And the size of the damage, that was enormous for a community our size. But, we all talked around the table on that as we worked that day fighting the flood and that, there was a real unity amongst the community. And we saw that with the amount of people and our equipment that came in. But I think since that point, everybody has been looking for this announcement. Can we get it back for ourselves? Our team here, Denis and the group and that, they can get things done quickly, as you could see on those days. But as you start bringing in government bodies and partners and that, everything slows way down. So it gets to be a little bit frustrating, but we have had tremendous support from the province and that. And so there seems to be a lot more excitement, and there's a lot of excitement in the community as well. So I think this is going to be an exciting project to get completed, and we're all happy about it.
Well, thank you all so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Okay, thanks for coming.